This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Let's see now, where did they put the starter on this thing?
Pay attention.
Now what? I say, what's the big idea bashing me on the noggin with a rolling pin? Talk enough people and we'll have a nation of lump heads.
And if Bahamians aren't prepared to stand up and fight and defend their own Bahamas, then you don't deserve to have it.
How can we become the Bahamas we want to be?
How can we change the mindsets of our people to respect their individual selves, others, and our nation?
How do we solve the problems that plague our nation?
How do we become our brothers and sisters' keeper?
Let's discuss it together and find the solutions.
So when you are asked the question,
Who are you?
You can proudly say,
I am a Bahamian. Yo. Hey, yo, we come a long way and we just begun. Come on, lift up your heads to the rising sun and just sing it out loud. I am a Bahamian. Come on, sing it out loud. I am a Bahamian.
Good evening, and welcome to Changing the Mindset, where we review the culture, problems, and society of that which we love and call the Bahamas. On this show, we analyze, review, and look for solutions to those things in our culture and country which prevent us from being the greatest little country in the world. First of all, let me just congratulate my older brother, Mr. Stephen Todd, who was just married this Saturday, and his lovely bride, Mrs. Lakeisha Todd. God bless and keep you both, and hopefully you'll be making plenty little Todds. I want to give my special appreciation to three awesome groups this evening. The first is the Crisis Center for the walkabout that they did in the Gambia community this Saturday past. They were handing out flyers and speaking to persons in the community about domestic abuse, sexual abuse, and a number of other topics that are very important to our nation. Secondly, the Children's Emergency Hostel and Mrs. Ferguson, the administrator, and her team, who got all the children there ready for this new school year. Now, some of us find it difficult to just get one or two children ready for the new year. Imagine having to get over 20 children prepared. So, I have to give them a hand clap for doing such an awesome job. And thirdly, of course, I must also shout out the greatest Toastmasters club in the universe, Club 1600. This Saturday, they had the Neil Pesenti Back to School event. Neil Pesenti, who is a deceased Toastmaster, started an event to give students a fun day before going back to school in the Union Village area, where the Toastmasters gave out hot dogs for lunch, free haircuts, encouraged the children, and gave some back-to-school tips. Great job, gentlemen, great job. I'm proud of you all. And my greatest shout-out, of course, who all of you know, is to the woman who inspires me the most, my beautiful wife, Mistress Shikanla Todd, without which I could not go home tonight. Again, let me welcome you to this episode of Changing the Mindset, right here on Guardian Talk Radio 96.9 FM, where we have fresh news, smart talk all day and now night. You can join us here on 96.9 FM or stream us live on GuardianTalkRadio.com. You can also like our page on Facebook.com at www.facebook.com Changing Mindsets, or join the group at Changing the Mindset. And yes, tweet us for all of our lovely Twam fans at Changing the Mindset at handle Changing the Mind. Now, we begin our new topic this month, and whoa, what a topic it is. With all of the crime, the way people interact and treat one another, this is a very timely topic for our nation. It seems from the very top of our nation to the little ones, we seem to have a very big problem when it comes to how we interact as people socially. The way it used to be before, the dynamics of how our society once worked has greatly changed. Before, neighbor knew neighbor, and growing up, it wasn't just an individual family that had an input into your upbringing, but basically it was the entire community. You couldn't go and do some foolishness and think by the time you get home, mom and papa ain't know. All that was about the fifth or sixth cut up you would get by the time you get in the door. But at the end of the day, the community was better joined together. Everybody tried to help each other out, and it was more unity. Now this brings us to our topic for this month, which is socialization in the Bahamas. But before we get into our topic today, I just want to welcome and introduce my special guest, both in studio and my special guest on the phone. Is she there?
Yes, I am.
How you doing this evening, Miss Smith?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
I am good. Let me introduce our lovely guest on the phone. My first guest, Mrs. Nakita Adderley Smith, is a mother, and of course, she let all of us know, a daughter, and a social worker. She attained her BA in social work at the College of the Bahamas, where she had hands-on training and direction. She works as the assistant administrator at the Children's Emergency Hostel and has been there for the past 15 years. She started as a childminder and worked her way up. She has seen in her field of expertise directly how abuse can affect a whole generation if it is not curbed or tackled hands-on. Welcome to Changing the Mindset, Mr. Smith.
Good night.
Now, my next guest, and I could call you brother. I can call you brother at this time, right?
Yes.
My next guest is, only for the moment I'm going to say this, Mr. Dion DaCosta Gibson, who is currently a junior at Sterling College in Vermont, studying sustainable agriculture. Previously, he studied agronomy. I pronounced it right?
Agronomy.
Thank you, because that had me all tongue-tied just now. At the Agrarian University of Havana in Cuba. He is currently working at the IICA, which is the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, as an intern consultant. He is, of course, a fellow member of the greatest Toastmasters club in the world, the first Bahamas branch of Toastmasters International Club, 1600. And yes, I am proud to be a Toastmaster, if you didn't know. And he sits on the National Advisory Committee for Agriculture. To date, his proudest moment was being selected to represent the Bahamas at the Third Hemispheric Forum for Young Leaders in Agriculture in Lincoln, Nebraska in 2010, where he stood before former members of agriculture from around the Americas and gave a speech and presentation. Wow, I just have a problem speaking in English. He gave a whole entire presentation in Spanish, as most of the delegates and panelists were Latin America. Glad to welcome you to Changing the Mindset, Mr. Gibson.
Good evening, thank you.
Now, when someone speaks about socialization, Mrs. Smith, to you, what exactly are they talking about?
To me, when they speak about socialization, they're talking about persons being able to interact with each other, being able to communicate, and being able to get along with each other.
Okay. How about you, Dion? When you hear someone in our society talking about socialization, what comes to mind when you hear persons talking about socialization?
Well, much like Ms. Smith said, socialization is when we as humans, and being an agriculturalist, I will tie animals into it because we have a lot to learn from them and their social structures. Mm-hmm. But when any group of organisms come together and how they interact with each other, how they deal with each other, just, the basic way that we deal with each other based on whatever the situation may be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, of course, I love the internet, so I Googled it. And I'm not ashamed to say I Googled it, Wally. I Googled it. And I looked up socialization, and here's what I found. Socialization is the process by which human beings, as material organisms, see, this is what happens when you don't eat lunch. Before you come in the studio, you get all tied up. It's a process by which material organisms living with other material organisms must learn to pattern their behavior and adapt it to the ways of acting that are considered appropriate to that society in which they live. Basically, it's how you learn to act. Now, it goes on a little further to say, socialization goes hand in hand with enculturization, which is the process by which human beings, as intelligent, reflective creatures living together with other similar organisms. Man, Wally, when you take this break, you got to bring me back when Ty snack or something, okay? Organisms must pattern their way of thinking and feeling and adapt it to the ways of thinking and feeling considered appropriate in their society. Pretty much, basically, how people learn to think and feel about their actions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, last month, we discussed education. And we talked about how it wasn't just one person's fault for the results we're getting, but, it involves everybody. Because everybody, when the educational results come out, love to play the blame game. It's the teachers. It's the parents. The students don't learn, but then at the end of the day, it's everybody that's actually involved.
Right.
Now, yet when it comes to socializing or training our cheering how to act, in Bahamian is. Let me ask you, Ms. Smith, who you feel holds the greatest responsibility?
I feel the greatest responsibility is held by the parents more than anybody else. They are a child comes from the parents, so therefore the parent should be the responsible mentor for the children.
Okay. What about you, Dion?
Yes, I would agree also that the parents or the guardian, the home structure is what is most responsible for the upbringing and well-being and the overall comportment of that child. I think that the community, which has been lost, the mindset of it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
That was once the backbone of a child's social structure and upbringing, but now that has been lost because it wasn't just the parent, as you said, the whole neighborhood, the whole street.
True.
Some time ago, maybe the whole of New Providence would have raised one child, whereas now that's pretty much gone. The parents barely do their job.
Mm.
Okay, and you're right because before it was one great big grapevine. If you did something in school before you get home, mom and papa didn't know, grandma all the way inside the Lucha didn't know, and someone down in the Nagua just waiting for you to come visit, and they just preparing to give you the cut up along with everybody else.
Definitely.
Anyway, we're going to take our first break. And once we come back from our break, we're going to continue this conversation on changing the mindset about socialization in the Bahamas.
Come on, sing it out loud. I am a baby. Come on, sing it out loud.
There's mealtime, and then there's KFC mealtime. Great food, great memories, and loads of fun. And with the all-new KFC Big Deal, there's something for everyone.
The new KFC Big Deal. 8 delicious pieces of our thigh and leg chicken and original, spicy or barbecue for just $13.99. Add any 2 family sides for only $4.99. Even a 2-liter Pepsi.
Great times and great family meals start with KFC.
So good.
Let's Talk Business, Thursday at 1:15 to 2:30 p.m.
Presented by Ivory Global Management Limited. Hosted by Roscoe Dames.
And co-hosted by Jessica Cartwright.
Let's Talk Business is a show that will provide you with practical information that would help you navigate the current and future business climate locally, regionally, and internationally.
Be sure to visit ivoryglobalmanagement.com for your comments, questions, or suggestions for this week's Let's Talk Business. That's this Thursday, 1:15 to 2:30 p.m. on Guardian Talk Radio. Let's Talk Business.
Did you know that for the low price of $50, you can place a photo, pricing, and contact information in the Guardian Deal Locator for 1 full month, or $25 for 2 weeks? In the Guardian Deal Locator, you can sell cars, boats, trucks, motorbikes, outboard motors, generators, rims, TVs, electronic devices, solar panels, AC units, and the list goes on and on. Do you have a business card? Place it in the Guardian Deal Locator for 1 month for the low price of $100 or $25 for 1 week, and give potential clients an easy reference to your product information. The Deal Locator, inserted every day in the Bahamas' leading newspaper, the Nassau Guardian. News and views that matter since 1844.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Come on, put your hands together. For the Bible declares in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31, they that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. I don't want to move till you tell me. I don't want to go till I hear you. I don't want to go by myself, oh God. No, no, no. I don't want to move till you tell me. I don't want to go till I hear you. I don't want to go by myself, oh God. So I patiently.
And welcome back to Changing the Mindset. Now we're going to open up our phone lines on the second half of our show at 8 o'clock. And the numbers to dial into the conversation are 323-8160, 323-6232. And you could either listen in to us here on 96.9 FM or stream us, streaming to the universe, as Chrissy says, on GuardianTalkRadio.com. Now, this portion of our show we call Changing the Mindset Spotlight on the Community, where we highlight the positive things going on in our community. Now, you can email us at changingthemindset@gmail.com if you or anyone you know are doing something positive. With a lot, basically every weekend goes by, we hear about somebody being killed, some murder and other things. And you know what? We need to know the news. And I agree, we need to know what's going on in our country. But at the same time, we need to know also about the good things that are going on to encourage us. And things that can bring light to help encourage others that the Bahamas is not lost. Now, tonight, we want to highlight the wonderful work of both the Crisis Center and, yes, again, the Toastmasters Club, 1600 Club. And it's not just because I'm a Toastmaster, I'm highlighting what they're doing. The club actually does awesome work in the community. The Crisis Center on September 28th, the Crisis Center will be hosting an event called A Night of Hope and Healing. And during the night, people will share stories, poetry, songs, visual art, printed, and music as an expression of their solidarity with ongoing campaign to end sexual violence in the Caribbean and basically the world. I will be there. I don't know about you, but I will definitely be there. It will be a night to share about your personal experiences or those you have witnessed happening to others. The venue will be announced soon and directly, but it will be open to the general public. And I invite persons to come down, share, or even just listen. Because, see, a lot of times we don't know what's going on in our neighbor's home. We may think everything may be all right and may not know. Sometimes when that person comes on their job, they go to school, what exactly is going on in that house that has that person acting the way they are. Next, we have, of course, the most wonderful club in the universe, Club 1600, who is having a membership drive this Saturday, September 7th, and it will be from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Mall of Marathon. Now, Toastmasters International, of course, being a non-profit organization, is devoted to developing individuals as leaders and also their speaking and oratory skills. As a member of myself, of course, I recommend it to anybody who wants to be a better speaker and leader, not just professionally, but actually in their life. Now, continuing with our conversation of socialization, Miss Smith, are you still there?
Right here.
Now, Ms.
I'm
Smith,
here.
you've been in the field and you see a lot of what occurs in our society and in our homes. And a lot of times persons talk about how persons just don't know how to act. Now, from your standpoint and of your experiences, is this really the case? Or does this stem from a much deeper problem in our society or in our homes?
I think it stems from a much deeper problem in our homes and in our societies. I feel as though, looking back over the years in the hostel, a lot of our parents, our children are becoming parents too young. A lot of times they're seeing things and they're trying to react to things that are going on that they don't really have any maturity to deal with. A lot of times we have children that are being parents that haven't really been parented themselves. There's not a lot of socialization within the homes because a lot of the homes also have single parents. Not downing single parents, mind you, but it's just that it's not. We usually come up in a family where we have both parents and children, and because sometimes the parent is not there, you don't have that male mentorship, you don't have that male calling, that male following in a person's life, children seem to just deter from what it is that they're supposed to do.
Well, you know, in a lot of homes now, we have a lot of single mothers.
Right.
And sadly, to add on top of that, a lot of those mothers are getting younger and younger.
Right.
I mean, I know my grandmother's generation, a lot of them used to have children at like 16, 14, 15, and that was the norm. But
right.
I would think that, I guess, I don't want to say the maturity level, but I'm guessing
No.
they knew that they had a certain responsibility at that age,
Right.
and the way they handled
Right.
it was a whole lot different. And
Definitely.
with a lot of our parents getting young and a lot of them being just either single mothers dealing in the homes by themselves, and some of them were even possibly married, and you know, the relationship didn't work out and they end up being single mothers.
Right.
What do you believe that the women, because you know this is a really difficult topic to deal with, there are so many things that affect it, but do you believe that women can raise men children? And the reason I'm asking this is because, see, right now we're having a problem both with our sons and our daughters, but a lot of our sons seem not to have any direction. They don't know even why they're here. They don't know what's their role in society for them to be. Do you feel that with the single homes that we have with fathers being absent, that these mothers can actually raise these sons to be the men that we need them to be in society?
I think if the single parent, being the mother, has a very strong relationship with a male person that can become a mentor for the children, there's not a problem. As long as they have a strong male figure in their lives, it doesn't really have to be a parent. It can be a pastor, it can be a friend, it could be an uncle, it could be a cousin. As long as there's a strong male presence in their lives, it can work. Definitely.
Now,
but just to do it by themselves, I mean, I'm not downing nobody else because I know a lot of single mothers had to do it themselves. But if they just had that help, it would be much better from that male strong presence.
Asking the same question to you, Dion. Now, being both a Toastmaster and a mentor, because I know that that's one thing I really love about Toastmasters, that is, although it trains you to speak and to be a leader, it also gives the men and women who are in all the different groups an opportunity also to mentor. Do you feel that women that are raising men, I should say, or boys in our society, without a male mentor to assist, can actually do the job that the society really needs?
I think that a woman can do the job. There are instances where it has been done. I wouldn't say that it's the most ideal situation to have, but I wouldn't knock it. And I think it depends on that individual mother. One thing you brought up was the mother may have been married and been divorced, or it could have been a non-married couple that had been together for a very long time, but something went wrong. And the father was out the picture. The father could have died, been incarcerated. And I think it really depends on that individual mother. One thing Ms. Smith said is that we have a lot of young children having children who have not been parented. And I think it all goes back to the parenting. So if someone has been parented well, by all means, I think that they could be a good single parent, man or woman, because we seem to undermine that there are a lot of single fathers out there who get a lot of grief from the mothers as well.
That's true.
I agree. And to all of our listeners, I'm not knocking any of our single home mothers because, see, I know I have sisters, I have aunts, and I know a lot of them did an awesome job with the men they're growing up. But see, I have to ask because right now in our society, our boys are going through a lot. And the hurtful part of it is how our society is. It doesn't just not groom the young men them of how to properly be men. It more or less teaches them the reverse of what they need. We teach our boys that if you cry, you express emotion, you soft.
Right.
And
right.
And the sad part with that is if they're having anger problems, if they're mad at the world, how do you express that?
Right. Right. Double-edged sword.
Now, Mr. Gibson, you're an agriculturist. And you deal with food as well. And I just want to know how important, not turning away from the topic of the young men, but how important is food to the social aspect of how people act? Or does society's ability to feed itself really important in how they act and they treat one another?
Yes, it most definitely is. And I've coined the phrase, and I say it every chance I get, that in order for a nation to experience national security, health security, job security, and financial security, it must have food security. Because food, being able to grow your own food, there's a gangster gardener of sorts in South Central LA who says that growing your own food is like printing your own money. We spend about $800 million a year at present to import food. That implies that the millions of dollars we receive from tourism money goes right back out to feeding the tourists and feeding ourselves. And I will share a story that a fellow Toastmaster shared with us yesterday, that a lady told him that she was driving to work, and at a roundabout, it gets a bit sticky sometimes in the morning, she almost hit this gentleman's car. Well, he didn't act like a gentleman, but as they came off the roundabout, he stopped his car, ran up to her car, started banging on the car and said, "If you were a man, I was going to beat you so bad." And he started ranting, and he broke down in tears. And said, "Please, come here. And he wanted to show her something in his car. He showed her the plate of food that spilled. The plate of food that someone just gave him in a car he just borrowed to take his children to school. The food for his children. The food that he was in a rough spot that he was not able to provide for his children on his own. Food is the one thing we all have in common, the one thing we all need. There's nothing else we need but food. So, and I always say agriculture is the basis of life. Everything we have comes from the ground. Just at least 95% of it comes from the ground. So therefore, food and food products are the basis of what we need. And I believe, to tie it into the topic, a lot of our social ills come from the fact that we have 22,000 persons unemployed in this country at present, I believe. And those 22,000 persons are frustrated. They don't know how to deal with their frustration. It goes back to the fact that either they weren't taught to do for themselves, where I encourage people to grow in your backyard, grow what you can. When you do that, you enable yourself to have some food for rough times. But these persons don't know how to deal with the frustration. They don't have food to give to their children. So many of them turn to robbing. People get paid to commit murders. So people will, I believe, it all comes back to it that people will do just about anything to be able to provide for their family. And that is how agriculture and food would tie into the whole social structure.
Okay. We're going to open up our lines in a few minutes. Now, Ms. Smith, you deal with a lot of kids.
Yes.
And I am sure, based on, how you train the children that are actually in your care, what kind of experiences do they sometimes come and tell you from the other children who know that they're from the Children's Emergency Hostel? What kind of experiences when they come back home sometimes do they talk about?
Okay. Before I talk about that, Mr. Todd, I just want to give props because we have a garden at the hostel.
All right.
That's right. We got a garden at the hostel.
We got an applause rock up in there. We got an applause rock?
Yes, please. Cabbage and okra and carrots and mangoes and lime and grapes. Yes.
That's
we have a garden at the hostel.
And that encourages the children there to do it when they move on.
Have the opportunity and guess what? We also use it as a venting place.
Yes, definitely.
So if you go there and you can dig in the ground and, see what it is, and you plant this, you can see it grow. So it's also a venting place for our kids. But back to the question. The kids at the hostel, we try to get them involved with everything as much as possible. Our kids go to the government school. We don't homeschool our kids. But a lot of times what happens in the school is the children have a tendency to point them out, have a tendency to call them names, have a tendency to try not to be with them. But on the other hand, there also are some students that take to them, that realize that they're not home and the parents. They have a tendency to bring things for them. They'll befriend them. They'll want to take them home. So, it's like a two-edged sword. We try to let our kids know that, hey, they're not different. They're just going through something right now. The parents are going through a little something right now. But eventually they'll get back home with their parents, and it's going to be all good. A little counseling, a little talking, a little listening goes a long way. And we try to socialize them as best as we could. Our staff we have a staff of mostly women. We have one man on staff, but we're also looking for mentors in that area if anybody's interested, But we try to give our kids the best that we could. We try to let them know that, hey, you're not different. You're just here for a while, but we're going to treat you the same way.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Yes, sir.
We're going to take our next break right now. And when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation with Socialization in the Bahamas right here on Changing the Mindset on Guardian Talk 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk all day. And
they shall walk and not faint. I don't want to move till you tell me. I don't want to go till I hear you. I don't want to go by myself, oh God. No. I don't want to move till you tell me.
Hi, my name is Kevin Harris, but many of you know me as Minister K, and I'm joining the team here at Guardian Radio.
On Monday, September 16, immediately following the 1 o'clock news, join us for the launch of a brand new national and political talk show called State of Affairs. It's going to be an interactive time of discussion regarding the current state of affairs of the country in all aspects, including our educational and criminal justice systems, as well as the state of affairs of our immigration, tourism, labor, and other relevant sectors. That's the new national and political talk show, State of Affairs, with yours truly, Kevin Harris, coming Monday, September 16th, immediately following the 1 o'clock news, right here on Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM.
There's mealtime, and then there's KFC mealtime. Great food, great memories, and loads of fun. And with the all-new KFC Big Deal, there's something for everyone.
The new KFC Big Deal. 8 delicious pieces of our thigh and leg chicken and original, spicy or barbecue for just $13.99. Add any 2 family sides for only $4.99. Even a 2-liter Pepsi.
Great times and great family meals start with KFC.
So good.
The year is 1976.
I'm going to start learning to use a computer.
Boy, ain't nobody gonna use those things, man.
The year is 1986.
I'm gonna get a phone that I can take around with me.
Ain't nobody can use them things, man.
Business persons that take advantage of innovations are business persons that are successful. In 2013, you can take advantage of the great prices now being offered to advertise in the Guardian Deal Locator. Inserted every day in the Bahamas' leading newspaper, the Nassau Guardian. News and views that matter since 1844.
Wake up. Weekday mornings, join us for the show that's shaking up Bahamian radio. Morning Blend with Dwight Strawn.
I must say, you all have raised the level of talk shows.
I think you have the best show that's going on right now for young people.
And I just want to tell you guys you're doing a great job.
For national and international news and entertainment, talk and analysis.
I'm impressed with the type of show that you're running.
With different perspectives from what you may be used to.
And the station has really, I think, gotten the country to really start thinking about things and stop looking at things from, just from politicians' promises.
Morning Blend with Dwight Strawn, weekday mornings from 6 to 9 on Guardian Radio 96.9.
When are you guys going to be online? Because by the time I find myself just in my car, just holding on to every last word. I don't have a radio in the office, so if I listen to you, I have to listen to you online.
We're online, GuardianTalkRadio.com.
Wake up, it's a new day.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Forever.
Listen, I know you see the hurt. I know you feel the pain. It's been so dry at times. You wish that it could rain. He sees your sacrifice. He knows those lonely nights. You've been so down and out. You just don't have the strength to fight. But don't you give up now, despite what's going down. Although the circumstance is gonna turn around. So keep your head up and dry those tears up. But get your life right.
And welcome back to Changing the Mindset right here on Guardian Talk 96.9 FM, where we are continuing our conversation with socialization in the Bahamas and how when we socialize our children it makes for a better society, or when we don't socialize our children we continue as we are. Ms. Smith, are you still with us?
Still here.
Now, I know this is an obvious question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And Wally, if it's too obvious, you can just beat me and cut me off. Wally, give me the look. Okay. How important is it to train our children how to act? Or better yet, what are some of the results you've seen in your experience and work profession from homes or families that basically do not properly train their children? Or properly, I should say in this instance, socialize their children?
Okay, when children aren't properly socialized or trained, the children are disrespectful. The children have no regard for the others. They do what they want to do, and they have no respect for others, no matter what they're saying, no matter what they're doing. They have a tendency to just do what they want to do. And it's becoming very difficult because a lot of the times the children that are not being socialized are the male children. And when you have male children in an all-female workplace, it's really rough. Because in the school, the school is basically full of females. Then you come home to full of females. So therefore, you're kind of restrained. You don't know how to deal with it because they have you in a box. They want you to act like how girls are supposed to act. And it just doesn't happen that way. It really, really doesn't happen that way. So you need to slash your children whereas they can know who's an adult, how to speak to an adult, how to speak to others, how to train how to deal with your anger, how to react to persons depending on what they say to you, you know, how to feel. And it's really hard. It's really hard. So children really need to be socialized. They really need to know that, hey, there are adults are around. You need to know how to speak to them, how to treat them, the other children around. Everybody's not going to react the same way you react. Everybody's not going to interpret the thing the same way you interpret it. So you got to ask them that they will be more respectful towards others and themselves.
Okay. Now, Dion, as a horticulturist, it was, but you know, it was true. It was to the point because being a father of both a son and a daughter, and this is a little personal experience I'm going to share. For my first relationship, my first marriage, I should say, it was rough. And the reason, personally, I can say it was rough was because both of us are very ill prepared for what it required out of a marriage to deal with the problems that came up. And we handled it terribly. I will not say it's her fault. I will not let her say it's just my fault. It was actually both of our faults because the way we reacted. And the greatest hurt and ill out of that was that the children saw a lot of the resulting effects of that. And I just pray to God because I know both of us love the children and do our best to make sure that they know that they're loved. But you know, that kind of thing is something that a lot of persons see in their homes on a regular basis, and that scars children. And the hurtful part of it is we do not know how deeply that goes.
Right.
And even when you work to try to make them understand this is not how you act with one another. And actually that was the resultant effect there. Remembering the fact that I had a daughter myself. I could not stay in a relationship where I know me and her mother were not getting along to show her this is how you should be in a marriage. And if for no other reason, I had to get out of that because I want my daughter to grow up to be happy and to know what it is to be in a loving relationship and to be loved. And I think a lot of our daughters, and it's the fault of us fathers as well as the fault of mothers, but I'll take it as the fault on us fathers, do not show our daughters what it is to be loved by a man.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be that intimate love, just what it is to be loved by a man. So when she meets a man who treats her with love and respects her, she know what it looks like.
Right.
Because sadly, a lot of our daughters fall for any old lying. What they say, Cutter? What's that? Blue Mystic Special? And a chicken and shark in the bag?
Oh, Lord.
I made a joke just the other day with my little boy when we took him to the nursery for the first time, me and my wife, and I told her that he's straight and plain. Now, if you want to talk to my son, although he in Bahamas, you got to show me your bank account. I'm sorry. But basically, you know, it comes back to the simple fact that, you know, we have to be more involved in our children's lives and actually parents, because nobody automatically is born knowing how to be a parent. No. I think a lot of persons believe once you push out a child, you automatically know what it is to be a parent. I'm an experienced parent, and I still make mistakes. I still have to ask God for strength sometimes and guidance to know how to deal with the child that he's placed in my life and my care. Now, Dion, you know, based on our conversation that we had, a lot of the problems, like you said, persons are having right now is their inability to feed themselves and knowing actually even how to deal with that. How much effect on our social ills do you think persons would have if more persons actually grew food in their home or even had a community garden when it came to how they socialize, they interact? How much effect do you think it would have on a lot of the problems that we're having right now?
You know, you spoke to me a few weeks back about doing a community garden in your neighborhood, and I welcomed it with open arms because I've done a lot of research on urban farming, which is growing vastly in the United States, Europe, all over the world right now. Community gardens are the thing. And the same gentleman who I referenced earlier, Ron Finley, who calls himself the gangster gardener or guerrilla gardener in in South Central LA. He actually said that real gangsters grow food.
Wow.
I hope he means real food and not other things that are called food. But he spoke of a time when a lady came to the garden that he planted. He took all the public sidewalks, dug up all of the grass, planted them with carrots, tomatoes, broccoli, anything you could imagine. And he does it seasonally so that whatever can grow during that time of year is available. And he doesn't charge anybody for it. They all come there and they work together. It's his job. I'm not sure how he makes money, I guess, donations or whatnot. But, the lady came there crying with her 2 sons, saying that, can I have some tomatoes, please? I can't feed my children. And he said, just tomatoes? This lady was going to sit down and eat 3 tomatoes like apples with her kids. But he told her, take whatever you want. Do you have a house? Do you have somewhere to go to cook a meal? She said, yes, we have a house. We just don't have any food. He said, well, take what you want. Then he gave her I think $20 to go and buy some meat. This is not an issue unique to the Bahamas. The world is, they project 9 billion people by 2050. We are barely feeding the people that we have now. So how are we going to feed the people of the future is a big thing. With the community gardens, I think locally it's something that could be tried, but I fear it to an extent because we lack honest people in the Bahamas.
Wow.
We lack honest people greatly. I mean, I say it not to offend anyone, not to mash on any toes, but some of the people we think we can trust the most will be the least honest with us. But the access to food is one of the main points of food security. Access to food security is defined as when all persons at all times have access to safe, nutritious food to inhibit a healthy lifestyle. And a lot of people don't have access to food, and a lot of the food we have access to, if we have access, is not necessarily healthy.
Healthy, right.
And it makes you sick.
And so we need to, as a country, take it more seriously, that we need to start growing for ourselves. It provides jobs. In the U.S., they say that agriculture alone currently employs 7% of the U.S. population. I think that's about 16.9 million persons.
What?
Miss Smith, thank you so much for calling in with us. I have a caller coming in actually on the line right now.
Okay.
I invite you, please, to continue listening and even call back. As you know, we're going to continue the conversation, but we're going to just let this call in a moment. Thank you so much for your contribution and your help.
Had a great time.
All right. And
Thank you
of
for your
course,
guest
of
also.
course, when we have the opportunity, I definitely going to have you in studio.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, too. Caller, good evening. Welcome to Changing the Mindset.
Hi, good evening.
Hey, Duran.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Oh, man. This is 1600 night.
Oh,
This is a fellow 1600 man on the line.
In the house. Gibson, how are you, sir?
All is well, Tom. So it's good.
Wonderful, wonderful. What a wonderful topic you have tonight, Todd. Just a wonderful, wonderful topic and timely discussion.
Now, Duran, you and I are fellow and very few fellow volunteers for the Crisis Center.
Yes,
and
sir.
we see, based on our volunteering, a lot of the ills and problems that come up out of not properly socializing our people, whether it's in the form of domestic violence, sexual violence, incest, where a lot of these things persons don't even like to talk about inside. We just like to pretend like these things aren't happening.
Definitely.
What would you say would be one of the things that persons need to do right now as parents and a community to begin trying to deal with this socialization problem we have, because it's affecting education, it's affecting crime, it's affecting the work attitudes persons have when they even come on their jobs.
Right. It's affecting every single aspect of our country. Every single aspect of our country. I mean, Ministry of Finances, the Ministry of Health, Agriculture. I mean, every single thing. Persons don't understand how deeply this goes. Listen, it all boils down. You are a product of your environment. More than likely, the environment you grow up in, when you become an adult, you will replicate that same environment. So we have to ask ourselves as a country, what do we want for our children? What type of future do we want for our children? And when we ask ourselves that question, and collectively answer that question, then and only then I think we will see the type of change that we need to see in this country. We have to address the social issues. Everything else is for nil. You know, all of this talk about education and sports and all of the other things that we speak about, we won't see true change in this country until we deal with the social ills of this country. We have to address it head on. In fact, I would go so far as to say that the Ministry of Social Services should have the largest budget right now, larger than anything else, because of the amount of challenges that we have in this country when it comes to the social ills. We have one of the highest rapes per capita in the world. All right, our murder rate, just through the roof.
Now, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and one of the things they were suggesting was that we need to start having classes for parenting. We have, it's a short class before you get married. You have classes for that. You have classes for persons to go to school to learn how to be a doctor.
Right.
But we need to have classes for parenting, because a lot of the problems they were talking about came out of the fact that a lot of parents don't know how to be parents.
No. Listen, we do have classes for parents, but it comes at a late point. The court, there is a division of the Department of Social Services where a person can be sent to do parenting classes. But a lot of times at that point it's so far down the line.
But that's only mandatory basically after the court has appointed it,
exactly.
when they've had a problem with how they deal with their children.
Right.
So
listen, I am working on something now where I would go so far as to say that we need to legislate parenting. And there are some instances and some examples of where that actually happens. Okay, a child has to go to school until the age of, I do believe it's 16. I may be mistaken on that. But that is an example of parenting being legislated. You follow me?
Uh-huh.
A child must have a certain amount of food. If you do not feed your child sufficiently, that's called child abuse.
And I don't think a lot of parents in our society know that. You send your children to school without having a decent meal or any meal.
That's actually against the law.
Yeah.
But also, like I said, there are a lot of people who really can't do it nowadays.
I know.
No, well, and that's no excuse, because the Ministry of Social Services, they provide. No child in this country should go unfed.
Yeah.
No child.
I agree with you.
Absolutely none. There's so much food inside this country that no child should ever. And there's sufficient churches, organizations that will ensure that a child eats. So a parent has absolutely no excuse if they allow their child to go without food.
And there are some parents, of course, they would rather buy themselves a nice new pair of shoes, pair of bag, and the best.
Yeah.
And don't make sure that child have a decent meal in the morning before they go to school.
But I would even take it a step further than
buy
that.
the shoes for their children.
Some parents whose pride is so strong
Yep.
that they would allow their child to go without food as opposed to getting on the lunch program that's provided by the Ministry of Social Services. Imagine that. Imagine that you now, because you don't want persons to know that your child is on the lunch program, that you're going to allow your child to go without food. You see, that's the kind of real challenges that we have in this country.
And the sad part about it, I had a disagreement with a lady on the bus last week, and she was blaming and saying that it's the attitudes of the young persons as to why the country is the way it is.
Oh, no.
And the fact that if this person, I ain't get there yet. And the fact that if this generation ever got in power, that the country would go to hell in a handbasket. And I asked the lady, where have you been living for the last 20 years? I'll give it 20 years. The country is already in a hellish state.
Yeah.
And it's only been under the leadership of 3 men for basically the last 40 years.
40 years, exactly.
I know what switch she hit me that day, but she did something wrong because
Yeah,
it got heated on the bus.
The generation prior to this one here has failed us tremendously. And they have failed to put the proper things in place.
Well, Duran, I just want you to hold on the line for us for a moment. We're going to go to our very last break. Right here on Guardian Talk 96.9, Changing the Mindset. Stay with us. We'll be back. Continuing our conversation with Socialization in the Bahamas.
Listen, I know you see the hurt. I know you feel the pain. It's been so dry at times. You wish that it could rain. He sees your sacrifice. He knows those lonely nights. You've been so down and out. You just don't have the strength to fight.
There's mealtime, and then there's KFC mealtime. Great food, great memories, and loads of fun. And with the all-new KFC Big Deal, there's something for everyone.
The new KFC Big Deal. 8 delicious pieces of our thigh and leg chicken and original, spicy or barbecue for just $13.99. Add any 2 family sides for only $4.99. Even a 2-liter Pepsi.
Great times and great family meals start with KFC.
So good.
The year is 1976.
I'm going to start learning to use a computer.
Boy, ain't nobody gonna use those things, man.
The year is 1986.
I'm going to get a phone that I can take around with me.
Ain't nobody can use them things, man.
Business persons that take advantage of innovations are business persons that are successful. In 2013, you can take advantage of the great prices now being offered to advertise in the Guardian Deal Locator. Inserted every day in the Bahamas' leading newspaper, the Nassau Guardian. News and views that matter since 1844.
Hi, my name is Kevin Harris, but many of you know me as Minister K, and I'm joining the team here at Guardian Radio. On Monday, September 16, immediately following the 1 o'clock news, join us for the launch of a brand new national and political talk show called State of Affairs. It's going to be an interactive time of discussion regarding the current state of affairs of the country in all aspects, including our educational and criminal justice systems, as well as the state of affairs of our immigration, tourism, labor, and other relevant sectors. That's the new national and political talk show, State of Affairs, with yours truly, Kevin Harris, coming Monday, September 16th, immediately following the 1 o'clock news, right here on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
Just take a look at me and tell me what you see. Do you see somebody real? Take one more look at me and tell me what you see.
And welcome back to Changing the Mindset on Guardian Talk 96.9 FM. In our last few minutes, we're going to just give out a few suggestions on this part of the show of what we can do to begin to deal with this problem of socialization. Duran, are you still there?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, what do you suggest that we can do to begin dealing and tackling this problem that we have with socialization or socializing our community? Because it's not just the children, the parents, the adults, the leaders, and it does not matter what field you are in. Its problem is going straight across the board. So what would you suggest that we can do to begin tackling this problem that we have of socialization in our country?
Education and information. We have to place in parents' hands the proper information and the proper education that's going to get something, that's going to get them something in their mind to click. Listen, everybody loves the child. Everybody loves the children dearly. You see parents, even when the child is doing something wrong, and we hear it a lot, not my good child. Because it's difficult for a parent to see, the evil in their own child. So everybody loves their own child. How do we now get the proper education and proper information into the parents' hands to ensure that they bring their child up in the right way? You see, the country right now is failing. We're failing our children. We have to now to begin to look at all of our children, as all the children of the Bahamas, as our own children. I was in a conversation the other day with a gentleman. He would say, boy, if something was to happen to my child, what I would do to her. I say, listen, every child is our child. And that's how we have to begin to start to look at these children. Because if we don't intervene into these children's lives, what's going to happen is that that same child is going to come and put that gun inside your face 20 years from now. They're going to rob you. They're going to murder you. They're going to be doing the raping. They're going to be doing the break-ins in the home. We have to reach those little children. And that's why I continue to say the Ministry of Social Services right now should have, we need like an intervention, what I call an intervention center in every single constituency. This whole thing about foreign direct investment and all of this kind of thing, we need, listen, put the brakes on. Let's start to deal with the real issues in this country. And it all boils down to socialization. We have to get that neighborly energy back into our society, which we have lost.
All right, thank you so very much, Duran, for your contribution tonight.
Wonderful show. We're looking forward to much more coming out of this show. Great work.
And glad to hear from you.
Wonderful.
And Dion, before we wrap up this evening, as an agriculturalist, as a Bahamian, as a man, what can you suggest that we can do to begin tackling this problem that we have of socializing our people?
The social decay that we are seeing in this country cannot be fixed with any one thing. Duran gave some good pointers. Ms. Smith gave some good pointers. I will give how I feel as an agriculturalist, and something that I've meant to do while I was home this summer. I hope I get my lashes from God for dragging my feet with it. But as Ms. Smith said, agriculture and farming, growing is a very good rehabilitative process. I know that when I first got my chickens, to get them as day-old chicks to the day when they laid that first egg, it did something to me. To know that I raised them and I kept them alive and I kept them healthy to where their eggshells are so hard that I could drop that on the ground and it doesn't crack completely. To know that that rehabilitative process, that it's so therapeutic, and great growing a garden, being able to literally reap what you have sown, literally being able to eat the fruits of your labor, literally, not just figuratively. But I think that it's something that we should implement in the prison more. I know they had a farm. I don't know if it's still there. I spoke to one of the teachers from the Boys Industrial School. It should be a part of our rehabilitative process, and also make it more in-depth in the schools. And the agriculture students feel a bit disenfranchised in the public schools. We need a BGCSE for it.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for tonight. Dion, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us right here on Guardian Talk 96.9 FM. Music this evening was brought to you by Mr. Jonathan Farrington. Jonathan is also a judge on the Bahamian hit reality show and gospel sensation 242 release. Music is also brought to you by Mr. Manifest, who's having a hip-hop fest this September 27, which is a Friday. Please, as we depart this evening, be safe, love one another, and please keep these words in mind as we depart. If you want to change your reality, you must first begin by changing your mindset. Have a good night, Bahamas.
I lost some friends along the way, and there were some mistakes I didn't have to make. But through it all, I knew who I was inside. There were so many nights I laid down and cried. People after me, they tried to